Some Nigerian sports stakeholders have raised concerns over the concession process of the Lagos National Stadium. On his inspection tour of the stadium, Minister of Sports Development, John Eno, announced there is a concession plan for the facility he met on resumption of duty. Minister Eno says the plan is at the almost concluded stage. Some sports people are now asking questions about the concession plan and process, which Nigerians are not aware of. The Lagos National Stadium was built in 1972 by the then military government for the African Games of 1973. To discuss this development, we're now being joined by sports journalist Effiong Nyong. Well, good afternoon. It's good to have you on the show. We appreciate you being here.
Great pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let's go in. Let's talk about this issue. What are the specific concerns being raised by this Nigerian sports stakeholders regarding the concession process of the Lagos National Stadium? And could you provide us, I mean, even in the intro, it looks as if the details are still very vague. Are there any insights into what the details of this concession plan by the Minister of Sports Development are exactly?
Well, see, the concerns are very disturbing and very worrisome because, like the minister has said, that he met almost a complete, the processes were already complete. You begin to ask, when did it start? Who are those that have tendered for it? What was the procurement and procedures that were followed? Who are the companies? Who are the individuals behind it? All of it is shrouded in some mystery. So you begin to ask, when did they start? How did they get here? Why this announcement at this stage? Now, but again, you take it again from the part of why concession. Yeah, concession is good if in the public-private partnership thing, one would say, okay, we were partners in progress. And there are some persons who already were partnering with government. For if you go to the swimming pool of the National Stadium, it's already there, and there's a partnership that is working there. If you go to the tennis, that is where they play lawn tennis, as we call it, you have a group of persons who are already running the tennis, and it's working. You go to table tennis, former commissioner for sports in Lagos, Eniton Shudi was commissioner, and as a table tennis enthusiast, they got it and it is working. So you now ask, if concessions are going to be made, what is the role? What role are these persons playing? Have they been given first offer of refusal? How are they involved in this? The information we get is that some persons have been appointed, some persons are going to take over, and who they are, why are they there, what have they done in sport before? No answer. So you now ask again, how did we get here? Now, the former Minister for Sport, Sunday Dari, now, he met the stadium in a functional state, I would say, because I've always been part of that stadium. Now, from nowhere, they shut the stadium. They said they want to carry out some renovation. Some persons came in, went in, destroying of facility, of structures, clearing the place. So they want to restore the stadium how it used to be, that businesses are not to be done in the stadium. But for God's sake, all over the world, stadium environments are places where recreational things are done, sports shops exist, businesses run. Now, but after they cleared everybody, only for these businesses to resurface at the Teslim logo that is opposite to the stadium. So you now ask, if these businesses were not good enough for the National Stadium, why are they reappearing on the other side? That's one. Two, these individuals deliberately, if you look at the stadium today, it's as if it's a war-torn zone. They deliberately plundered, destroyed this stadium so that it will look dilapidated, and that's what raises the suspicion that could it have been part of the plan all along? Because if you look at the covered terraces of the National Stadium in Surulere, you see all the roofs that were made with very good concrete, all of them are broken. Who broke them? How did it happen? So there's a whole lot of questions that the concessionaires need to answer. How they got here, what informed it, how come people don't know this individual? When did they bid? What bid did they put in? Where did they put it? What's the process? Who are these individuals? So there's a whole lot that is not known. I want to believe that there's some interest. Either the former minister is very interested, or his friends, or some persons in the directorate, in the facility directorate of the ministry are interested, and they're not able to come straight. to be able to say what to do. Now, the last time the former minister, Sonidai, was at the stadium, I was there and he addressed the press. And we sat at the swimming pool area and he said, oh, what he's seen of the swimming pool is very nice. And they will want it, that this is the kind of partnership that government is looking for. So at what point did all of these people that have been putting their energies, their resources to run these facilities, at what point did they go wrong that they are not being carried along, that they don't know what's happening again? I also would like to note, I want to underscore the fact that these individuals who are running partnerships in the stadium right now have been doing so on their own. The swimming pool itself was locked up for 18 years until this individual, the person that runs it now, got into the stadium, got approval. What the approval is, what the concession was, what the partnership was, I don't know, because I'm not in his business environment. But I know that that stadium, that swimming pool was locked for 18 years. Include the pumps were broken, the pumps, everything around there, including the seats. He replaced all of that. Yes, yes, please do.
Because I'm very conversant with the National Stadium, and the issue about concession did not start today. Because we know that when the former Minister of Sports, talking about Solomon Dalong, also came on board, he spoke about concession. It didn't see the light of the day. Sunday Dare too came up and spoke about concession. It did not see the light of the day. And right now we have a third minister in succession speaking about concession of that particular national stadium in Lagos, understanding that it's one of those historical landmarks in the history of Nigeria, and from when it was built and the kind of matches that have been played, the kind of events that have been held there. A lot of people still believe that concessioning the stadium is the way out, being that you look at it closely. You've mentioned some people handling several parts of the National Stadium, which is just almost like a microcosm of the entirety of the National Stadium. Because if we factor in all the hoodlums who have permanent addresses, who live and their permanent addresses are in the National Stadium, people say the National Stadium should serve the greater good. The National Stadium should be a place or a melting pot for sports athletes. But it's been overrun by several different people. And entertainment, or probably parts of the National Stadium and what it gives to some people, should not be the focus, but that the national team, like the Super Eagles, should be able to play matches at the National Stadium. The national basketball team should be able to play matches at the National Stadium. Athletics should be able to hold tourneys at the National Stadium. You and I know that is not even possible as we speak, because the basketball court there, it's an eyesore. Not gotten a facelift in a long time.
Can I comment?
Okay.
All right. Now, if that is the interest, concession, nothing is bad about concession if the processes, the procedures are right and transparent. There is the Procurement Act.
Yes.
It has a process that should be followed. Nobody's against that. But coming back to this stadium, I know that stadium like the back of my palm. Okay. Since before it was even built. My primary school is behind it there, and Salvation Army Primary School. As children in our formative years, we used to run through the swamp to go and catch fish and pursue birds in that stadium. So I know that stadium very well. Now, if the interest of those that are running in sport, or those that are managing sport is, or the facility want it to work, they know what to do. In 2006, when the last match was played at that stadium, I was in the stadium. It was a match between Keshi. It was a match that was organized by Smart Bodage, Smart Ventures. It was Keshi and friends. It was a retirement game for Stephen Keshi and his friends. Judge upon where and all of them got at that stadium. What was the problem? The problem was security. The security of that stadium was let loose. Those that were doing the ticketing, those that were managing the crowds, allowed area boys to enter the stadium and rushed onto the pitch at the close of the game. And they cut off Oslokocha's chains and that. That happened. And the then ministry, those that were running the sport at that time, announced that this stadium was going to be closed. I thought the ministry would have been proactive enough as to address the security issue of the stadium and not to seal the stadium completely. That's one. Two, if the interest of those that are running the stadium is to refurbish the stadium, I just mentioned areas of the stadium that has been taken over, that is managed by people, and they are functional. It is not true to say that the stadium is dysfunctional. It is not correct. The National Institute for Sports is inside that stadium, and the institute is still nurturing players, is still nurturing managers and producing and coaches for Nigeria. If the interest is to say, let us build sport, then at the time the Abuja took over, all of the sports federations relocated to Abuja. There is this thing in sport where you talk about catchment areas. Why are some sports not asked to keep their head offices in Lagos? Like track and field, like table tennis, that is purely a Lagos sport, like football and some other sports to stay, so that those offices will be engaged. Now, if you concession it to whoever, are those persons going to bring back the ministries to come and occupy the stadium to run the sport? The ministry needs to think deep.
It's not even about occupying, but more of having facilities whereby, because naturally, because you and I know that, for example, the Paralympic sports, they found a life in the National Stadium. We speak about the state of the National Stadium. Whether you like it or not, powerlifting and the rest of them still operate majorly from this particular national stadium. They've been able to do something about it.
Okay, let me tell you, how will these Paralympians have access to this stadium when it is concessioned to one businessman that may not have this interest? Now, the legacy pitch in the stadium was renovated during Nigeria 2009, during the World Under-17 Championship that Nigeria hosted. Now, that's tough. That facility is still being used by league games of the NNL, and they're still playing matches in that facility. Now, the hockey pitches, there are pitches that are there that need development. Yeah, the legacy pitch. If, for instance, I would expect government in a public partnership relationship, ask the squash association, the squash courts are there, the courts for fives are there. Let individuals let the associations manage the facilities. Let the sports association, we have over 44 sporting federations in that stadium that are operating from that stadium. And all of these are concentrated at the Abuja Stadium. Let me also say that if you go to the Abuja Stadium, you still will find this rot that I'm talking about. But I'm particularly worried because I know that the stadium at the National Stadium in Surulere was deliberately plundered to create this scenario of a dilapidation so that some persons can now be merciful enough to help us. That help, I don't think it's proper. That's on one hand. On the other hand, again, like I said, concession in the stadium is not the problem. What are the procedures? How come the Solomon Dalong talked about they were going to concession? Solomon Dalong came to the stadium and appreciated those that were managing the stadium and things were working. When Dare came in, he said they should now shut down that same stadium, drove everybody away and wrecked it.
But what safeguards should be in place to prevent any further under-the-table deals or the potential misuse of this national asset during this concession process? Very briefly, before we
Well, I think all should happen is to come to the table. Let the procedures be transparent. Let everybody be part of it. Let us know that this is what we want to do. These companies have bidded. What are they bringing to do? What have they done before in sport? And not things being shrouded in secrecy, no transparency. All you hear is that it's being concessioned, or some persons are coming to take over. Inventories are being taken. And say, how? So what is the rule? What space is there for those who have been managing and nurturing this whole facility before this time? What will be their role? What will be their participation? What's their interest? And for those of us who, like I said, have been part of that stadium, how do we deal with it? What happens if you concession it and they decide to turn to real estate? Because that space is big. And they begin to develop housing and you cannot have access to that stadium. Like the Paralympians, how would they get access into that stadium? There are a whole lot of questions are unanswered, and we need answers. So we need the sports minister to come clean. What is being completed, he inherited it. Open it up, let us see.
We definitely hear you loud and clear, Mr. Effiong. Thank you so much for your time. I realize we'll continue to monitor this story.